Hello everybody. So today we're going to be tying the Mahalo Nymph, a special nymph used for Pyramid Lake. We're going to be using 140 denier UTC black. I like to up the gauge on this thread so that it's a tougher thread for a tougher hook. As you'll see here, we're using size 10 nymph and wet fly sprout bend down eye 2x heavy forged bronze. The 2x heavy is actually the same as 2x strong. I looked into that a little bit. And we're doing that as we want to have a very strong hook to match the very large fish that are up there. And as for the bead we're going to be using on this today, we're going to be using a copper 7/64 to match these size 10 hooks. I'm going to slide that on there real quick, and then we're going to mount that in our vise, just like so. Now the first step on this is we're going to be using some .025 lead wire. We're going to wrap that right behind the bead as to keep the bead in place and to add a little bit extra weight to our fly, just to keep it so it's swimming correctly and everything is working out nicely. Now what I like to do is I like to leave that little tag end right there, as you can see. And what we'll do is we're actually going to plop that off just like that, roll that over so that it's even, push it up into the bead, just like that, leave as little of the tail there as we can. And for the wraps on that, I like to do 4 to 5 on this one, just because it fits nicely and gives me a nice looking body profile. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be starting our thread right behind that, just getting that going real nicely, just like that. There we go. We're going to take it back to where it starts to kind of bend, just like that, and then we're going to bring it forward up through the lead, and we're going to tie it through that lead just to really anchor that in so we don't have that moving around on us while we're bringing in our other steps. Now before I tie in the tail, what I like to do is I actually like to build up my body a little bit so that I'm not having an issue with that later on with more steps coming in and more materials, everything like that. Another nice thing about using UTC 140 on this is it gives us a little bit more girth to our thread when we're building body, so that when we do build body we have a little bit less of a difficult time doing so. Put that right there, and then we're going to clip our tying thread tag end, just like that. Now we're going to grab a red pheasant tail feather, just like that. We're going to strip off a small bunch. Now normally with pheasant tail nymph patterns, I'll use a smaller amount than I do on this one. But this, we want to have a good looking poofy tail. So we're going to cut off a small selection of the tail fibers, just like that. There we go, as you can see. Now we're going to straighten these out the best we can, just like so. And we are going to measure. Now I like to measure a hook shank in length, most other patterns like that, but what we're going to do is we're going to bring it back to about right there, tighten up our thread. I like to have about 3/4 of a hook shank of a tail, because I like it a little bit shorter, but I don't like it too short or too long. Just like that. Get that tied in on top. There we go. Perfect, that looks good. Now we're going to tie this in a little bit more. Doesn't matter if it's on the side or on the top. There we go. Now we're going to take either cut, or you can just break it off like that. I only recommend breaking it off if you're very confident in your tie-in on there. Now for our next step, we're going to be using some BR small copper wire, UTC, just like that. We're going to break off about 3 to 5 inches, just like that, just so we have a good amount to work with. And if you're tying more than one of these flies, you'll end up using the rest to minimize waste on your other flies. I'm going to tie that in right up by the lead. We're going to begin making wraps backwards like that. Go back to the very start of the tail, just like that, and then we're going to cover it up just a little bit. Place that right there. And then right here we actually have wine medium tinsel. If you can get this in large, it works even better, but that is what it looks like right there. We're going to be taking off a small section, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tying that in at the back end. And this will be what wraps forward to be our body, or the under of our body rather, where we're going to have the wire wrap over it. Now like I said, you can either cut what you think to be exact for this pattern, or you can cut more as to tie more than one of these flies. And just like this, we're going to grab our tinsel. There we go. And then I like to tie it in Not like this, because if you tie it in like this, you're going to have a little bit less that's anchored down. What I like to do is like get a good catch on there like that, wrap it like that, get a few good captures on there, just like that, and then I'll bring it back and wrap back onto itself. This right here is what I found is the best way to keep it anchored down in there and to give a little bit more strength to this fly. Because when you're tying flies, why make them tough when you can really make them mighty? Now we're going to clip off that tag end right there that we had from tying it originally. Just like that. There we go. And now we're going to bring our bobbin all the way forward. Right there. And what I like to do is when tying this, when building body and everything like that, as you can see right there, I still have some lead wraps that I want to keep pretty well uncovered, as it'll help me with building in my wings and my body later on. We're going to begin making wraps forward, and don't worry if you don't cover all the black immediately, as we're just getting it forward so we can begin doing our back wraps like this. This is where you want to make sure that you're getting as much coverage as you can until we do our next forward wrap. Just like that. There we go. And then we're going to wrap one more time forward just like that, keeping a good amount of tension. But when using tinsel like this, you don't want to add a ton of tension, because if you do, you will stretch it and break it, which can be concerning and cause you to have to restart your wrapping on that. We're going to tighten up our tying thread like this. We're going to bring this forward and then right underneath, like that, and a couple more times underneath, just like that, getting it really secured up and in there. Now we're going to cut that off. And as you can see, I've got quite a bit left. That is because I plan on tying another one of these. There we go. Now we have our copper wire here. And as we wrapped it this way around, we're going to do a counter wrap with our copper wire, just like this. That'll give us a little bit more strength, a little bit more catch on there, and help us with keeping this fly really, really strong. There we go, and you're going to want to bring it up to about the halfway point of that blank spot on your hook. Capture that just so you can go underneath it real quick. There we go. And I like to capture this completely by covering it so you can't see copper wire in one spot. We're going to helicopter or just spin this off, just like that. Now for our next step, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take a piece of flash right here. This is a flash I'm using. There we go. As you can see, it has a nice iridescence to it. We're going to cut off a single piece, just like that. And we are going to clean it up a little bit just so it'll fit our pattern a little bit better. There we go. And this is the order that I like to do this fly in. Helps out with getting all my steps correctly put in there. We're going to tighten up our tying thread, so we're working with a little bit less here. And we're going to tie this in so it's not quite to the bead on the hook. I'll actually rotate this. As you can see, it's not quite going to be tied in right on the back of that bead. And then we're going to really anchor that down back to the copper wire just like that, and we're going to continue tying that in just to make sure it's really in there. As you can see, it sits back nicely like that. Now we are going to be using Seal X Ice Dubbing Nightmare Red variant. We're going to grab just a little bit of this because it has very long fibers to it, which is very good for some patterns, but this pattern I like to keep them very compact and very consolidated. We're going to create a dubbing noodle on our tying thread, just like that. As you can see right there, we're going to begin tying that in. This will go in very nicely. As soon as you get it started, begin doing more concise wraps just like that. There we go. And as you can see, we don't have very much right up here at the head where there's that little black. That does not matter at the very moment. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our red pheasant tail one more time, just like so. And we're going to peel off several more fibers. Now with this step, what I like to do is I like to make sure that when you are tying in these fibers and cutting these fibers, you want to make sure that it's not necessarily a specific amount, but you want to make sure you are grabbing an equal amount. So you want to grab about 5 to 6 rather than grabbing like 2 or 1, because if you grab that low or that little amount, you're going to have a very uneven looking set of wings. All right, now I'm just counting out how many I want. I would like to have a pretty beefy front end, but I don't want to have it be extremely overpowering. Don't want it to overstay and overshow its welcome on the front end. Don't want it to detract from anything else. Now, as you can see, I've got these lined up pretty well on there, just like that. We're going to take, the way I've learned to measure these is you're going to measure just a little bit more than the thorax we've created and tie it in right there. And that first wrap was just a capture wrap to get them on top. And now you can begin doing tighter wraps right here. We're going to take, and to really beef this up, toughen it up so we don't have any materials coming loose later on, we're going to do one behind and then one more in front. Just like so. A little bit doughy off there. We're going to take our scissors, cut off the back ends, close as we can. Just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our hollow, and you can either, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can actually tie in individually, one on each side right there, or the group that you want on there. But what I like to do is I'll tie in a singular bunch right here, fluff those out a little bit, and then what I'll do, I'll divide them equally as I possibly can down the middle. So, that one on this side, that one right there. There we go. And then I'll bring this over the top, grab those back, bring my tying thread up, just like so. Capture that, pull it forward, tighten it down, get another grab on it, and then get really tight wraps. Then I'll take this part right here, pull it back just like that, tighten up my tying thread, and give it a spin. Either way will work, doesn't really matter which way, but you want it to be a very tight thread, just like that. Now we have that secured very, very well, very nicely. We're going to cut that off because we are done with it. Bang, just like that. We are going to grab our whip finish tool and throw a 2 to 3 whip finish turn. Oh, we don't want to capture that one. There we go. There we go, 3 whip turn whip finish. We'll add an extra one on there just to be safe. Pull that there. Cut our tying thread. And we're going to cut off that fiber that's just kind of in a little stray there. There we go. And then the final step that I like to do on this is I will take some nail polish. I've actually put it in a separate applicator bottle that gives me a little bit of an easier pinpoint on there. Take just a little bit on top, and then we're going to just move that around a little bit, just like that. Just to make that really good finish on the head. There we go. And that is our finished Mahalo Nymph, a specialized fly used for Pyramid Lake that will catch very big fish and keep them on the hook. And a finalized thing you can do, doesn't really matter if you do, I'm doing this for style points, is I actually just want to clean off a little bit of the longer pieces of dubbing that went through a little bit weird. There we go. We have our finished product, the Mahalo Nymph. If you liked watching, or you'd like to see more of this content in the future, please do leave a like and a subscribe. And if you would like to recommend a fly you'd like to see in the next video, please do leave that in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.